Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. We're going to talk about the video game industry. We're going to talk about this big controversy with Rockstar Games firing unionized Grand Theft Auto 6 developers. And we're going to, try to shed some light on what actually went down. Now, I did cover this a couple of weeks ago, that a bunch of people were fired. They really didn't go into detail as to why they were fired. They just said they violated company policy. And now we seem to know what the issue was, which is they were sharing emails, I guess, on this Discord server from the company Slack. They're saying it was innocuous. It was just like a policy thing. We're going to look into it. So this is a sticky situation, right? Let's just kind of preface it by that. And I want to be very clear. I mean, I know we go on about unions, and I don't always disagree with unionization if the company is actually abusing you or taking massive advantage of you or whatever. However, in more recent years, there are people that are attempting to unionize to not necessarily get better working conditions, but to actually force the company to change what they're publishing or force a policy change that, maybe doesn't make a lot of sense from a business point of view. And I can speak to that as a business owner. I don't think people realize, like, YouTube is definitely not everything that we do. We do a lot of things. We've done a lot of things over the years. I'm actually kind of a serial entrepreneur. And I have been for the better part of 2 decades. We've run multiple businesses. In fact, I kind of whacked the beehive yesterday. I didn't think this was going to cause quite a stir. We actually had an esports, small esports center, retro arcade, weeb shop in Western Pennsylvania, and our lease is up, and we decided to shut it down. And to us, it was like a Tuesday, right? It was like, well, it kind of sucks, but we tried it. It wasn't generating the profit it needed to generate to justify another 3 to 5 years in the space. And the space was ridiculously expensive, and for where it was and what it was. But people are like flipping out. They're like, we didn't know. Why didn't you say anything? I'm like, we don't talk about most of what we do on YouTube because we've got terminally online weirdos, right? They stalk our family. It's very freaking weird. So yeah, we actually run multiple businesses. We have our fingers in a lot of different things. I mean, literally we could disappear from YouTube tomorrow and we'd be okay. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I enjoy doing it, but we would probably just move on to something else. I mean, it's not our first rodeo, I guess, as they say, but I do have some experience with hiring people. I do have some experience with unhappy employees. We've never had anybody call for unionization. I'm not running sweatshops or anything like that, but I have worked for companies. And I think I talked about this before when I was younger, and I was actually managing editor at a newspaper, and we actually published a bunch or printed a bunch of other magazines and newspapers. And the owner was dealing with a situation with the pressmen. They wanted to unionize, and they were already the highest paid pressmen in that part of the state. Actually, they might have been the highest paid pressman in the state because we were doing like TV Guide and all this other crazy stuff. But he sold the company to deal with it because he's like, I don't want to deal with it. He was in his 70s. He's like, I don't want to deal with this shit right now. So you guys, your asks are ridiculous. You want way too much money for what you're doing. And in that particular case, it was because these guys saw how much money was being pushed through the shop, millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? And they wanted a bigger paycheck, even though they were already the highest paid pressman out there. And the owner just sold the company to be rid of it. And that was messy. Like we had I remember that because I worked on the editorial side for the newspaper, which he kept the newspaper. But they had the Department of Labor come in and they questioned all of us, and they grilled us. I mean, they hauled all the managers. We were hauled into a room and they were grilling us on the working conditions and everything. And I'm like, I go down to the press room like once a week to make sure nothing's like, nothing's wrong. They're not running the wrong front page or whatever. Like, I have no dog in this fight. And then it turned out that they had some other people there that were technically not supposed to be managers, but they were calling them managers so they could put them on salary, even though they didn't have any staff. It was a whole thing. But yeah, he really got so fed up with the situation, he sold off the company. And then I think the new owners reset the clock. I don't know exactly how that works. It was in Pennsylvania at the time. And they're just like, yeah, the union, yeah, we're done. We're firing all of you and we're hiring new people. And that's what happens. That was my long way around to get to this, which is companies, if they feel the union is an actual threat to the company, not just, hey, we want better working conditions. Like in the case of Kickstarter, they actually got what they asked for. I guess they got their 4-day work week, and they got some other stuff they wanted. I think a cost of living increase, and they were looking for like $85,000 a year in New York, which it's New York, right? I mean, just take living anywhere else and triple it, and that's basically how it works, right? But I don't think in this particular instance they were looking to have more say over who gets to use Kickstarter and who doesn't. This might have had something to do with the content of GTA. And here's the thing too about when businesses fire people this way, or they find a reason to fire people. In a lot of cases, there was already another issue. They just didn't want that to be the issue that they terminated you for, right? Because for whatever reason, either it was a bad look or whatever. A lot of times the reason you got fired, the reason you got laid off, if it wasn't strictly financial, it was because they have been waiting for a reason to get rid of you, right? So in this case, these particular employees might have been problem. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. They might have been a problem, or they might have rubbed management the wrong way to begin with. See also Teen Vogue, and what's going on there. So they might just be like, you know what, you guys, here's a technicality. You broke this law. Now we have an out. Goodbye. Because we couldn't get rid of you before now, but goodbye. And that's what I think a lot of these companies are doing right now with AI too, and being like, oh, macroeconomic circumstances, oh, we're not doing well. And part of me is like, are these companies deliberately taking a hit for a couple of quarters just so they can get rid of some of these employees they hired during the pandemic? I don't know, right? But I can tell you from the inside that some companies will do whatever they have to do to get rid of, employees that are going to cause a problem or cost them more money. They can't afford it. They can't afford to give you a 6-figure salary, let you work 2 days a week from home, maybe four hours out of the 8-hour workday. They'd go bankrupt. They can't let you go say whatever you want to on Twitter, because you're going to cost the company money. They'd go bankrupt, right? So let's talk about this. This is coming from a Rock Paper Shotgun. Before I get into it any further, and I am into it very far, and I'm just trying to frame this as a business owner. I want you to know that I'm not just like, you're just sucking up to the corporations. I'm like, bitch, I am a corporation. We technically are. And we do a lot of things that we don't talk about. I'm just putting that out there. But before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. And speaking of other things, we are probably going to migrate more and more off of YouTube. I don't trust YouTube. You shouldn't trust YouTube either. They've definitely changed, and not for the better. This year, they are chasing maximum profit and shorts. And the maximum profit is for Google, not for creators, right? So we're going to be putting more and more of our content, I think, on more.clownfishtv.com. We're going to bring back old school forums. We're just going to kind of hang out like it's 2002 and just pretend the rest of the internet doesn't exist. But if you want to support the channel, because again, the thing is that, we got to make sure everything pays for itself. And we do have overhead with Clownfish TV, believe it or not, we do. Check it out, more.clownfishtv.com. That is the best way to support us, because God knows YouTube isn't going to. So let's talk about this. This is coming from Rock Paper Shotgun. I know a lot of people have talked about it. Deserto talked about it. And I'm sure there's, two sides of this story. There always is. Rockstar fired unionizing GTA 6 developers following Discord chat about new company Slack policy, claims report. Okay, so IWGB union boss accuses the company of trying to govern by fear. Well, I mean, look, sometimes it's fear mongering and sometimes it's just being realistic with people. Again, this all ties in because I talked about the gaming center we shut down. We were open for like 4 years, going on 5 years, if you count the other locations. So yeah, about 4 or 5 years. I was very upfront with my employees, and I'm usually very transparent with my employees. We have some people that wrote for us freelance over the years. I will tell them when things aren't looking good, because I've been blindsided before. I've been blindsided by companies that are like, everything's fine, guys. You have nothing to worry about. And then I got laid off on Monday. It's like, bitch, I see the financials. I know what it's like. I was very upfront with my employees. People were like, how could you do that? How could you not mention Clownfish TV? Because you could have saved this place. I'm like, I didn't want it to be a Clownfish TV arcade. I was barely there. Like we bankrolled it, but we had people running it for us, right? So I was very upfront with the employees, and I wasn't threatening. I wasn't whatever. I was just like, hey, I'm looking at the numbers and they're not great. It's like it's treading water, but the economy is taking a nosedive, and I have to look at whether or not, I'm prepared to lock in for another 3 to 5 years to keep bankrolling this place. And there have been some months I've had to pull from other businesses to pay the overhead on this one, and that's not sustainable, right? And so they understood. And in fact, one of our employees left early and took another position, and I encouraged it. I'm like, do it, because I can't promise you a job. And I'm very upfront with people about that. And like I said, we've had people write for us, and I've actually told them, and they've gotten mad. Yeah, some of them have gotten mad, but I'm like, hey, I'm going to give this till like October. And if things don't improve, I got to do what I got to do. Because that's just business, man. It's just business. So we'll see what the policy here is. Okay, so new report claims the firing of 34 developers by Rockstar for alleged gross misconduct following a Discord discussion which cited emails about changes to the company's internal Slack policies. Rockstar had been accused of union busting by the Independent Workers Union of Great Britain, so take that into consideration. This is England, not the U.S., with the union having filed legal claims against the company. It's very hard to, as I understand it, and of course we're not based in the UK, it's very hard to fire people in the UK, just like California. You have to have a paper trail, and that's probably what was going on. Look, if I had to guess, I'm saying these people were a pain in the ass for various reasons, and they were looking for a reason to get rid of them. And it may or may not have had something to do with union busting, but they do encourage unions in Europe, I think, more so than they do in the US. I think they were a pain in the ass. That's just my armchair observation, my theory. This new report from People Make Games cites an anonymous Rockstar insider as having passed on messages from the private Discord server Rockstar developers and IWGB staff were using to organize, with the insider claiming they believe these messages contributed to the firings. Okay, so if you're using so the company doesn't want you to unionize and you're using their shit that they're paying for to unionize, yeah, they might get a little mad. They might get a little mad, right? The alleged messages and questions discussed and include snippets of text from internal Rockstar emails concerning a change in internal Slack policy, which the company reportedly announced to staff in the second week of October this year. Okay, according to People Make Games, the policy changes include the removal of miscellaneous Slack channels, which staff used for non-work related discussions, with Rockstar allegedly claiming these have become distracting and occasionally sources of poor conduct. Politics, probably politics and personal lives and bitching about shit. Okay, the report claims that at least one of the two emails from Rockstar about the changes were sent out after 5 p.m. UK time, with Rockstar staff reportedly only able to access their work emails while at the company office during work hours. Some members of the Discord who were still in office then allegedly shared information or quotes from the emails in the server so staff who'd gone home could see and discuss them. Okay, so again, I can see as an employer, you have to be very careful with things like Slack. We've had issues with Slack. We had multiple Slacks for multiple companies. If you lay down the law and you say, this is what Slack is for, this is what your Gmail is for, right? It's company property. It is. I don't think people realize you got to pay for Slack. You got to pay for Gmail. Every one of you. I have to, in my case, I have to pay for you. I have to pay for you to have email. I have to pay for you to have access to Slack. And, it's very possible we've got some employees, and I'm not trying to, I'm definitely not throwing shade at anybody, but I can tell you that, there's a couple $100 a month in subscriptions or whatever that we pay per employee to have access to these tools. And the reason you have access to those tools is to help the company function better, to make it more efficient for us so we can all make money and you can keep your job. If you're abusing that and you're using it for non-work related purposes, as an employer, I would be pissed. If you understand, it wasn't just a oopsie doopsie. It was like, we have told you no using the Slack after, as I understand it, no using the Slack after 5 p.m. for anything personal. But then you didn't end run around it and you went to a personal section or whatever that wasn't locked down. I'd be pissed. I would be. I'd be like, you deliberately sidestepped a rule that we had in relation to how to manage, social media and Slack and stuff like that. And I fired people for that. I have. People that have tried to do end runs around us, I have fired them for that because, I mean, I'm a good guy to get along with for the most part. But if I give you an explicit, clear direction and you deliberately give me the finger and you're on payroll, I am not paying you to fuck me over. I mean, that's the way I look at it. Like your job, the reason you're here is to make the company money, to make us all have money, right? That's the way it works. And I know people don't like to hear that. We're friends to a certain degree, but like there needs to be an understanding. If I'm paying you for a service and I'm giving you the tools to do that for me, you know what I'm saying? So if you're a gardener and I provide you a wage and also the tools to do my gardening, you're not allowed to take those tools and give them to somebody else. You're not allowed to take ththose tools I gave you to do my gardening because that's what I'm paying you for. You're not allowed to sell those tools on eBay. You're not allowed to if I said, hey, don't rototill the garden, or don't whatever, mess with the garden after 5 o'clock. And you try to do an end run like, well, I'm going to send somebody else in to mess with the garden after 5 o'clock. Cause technically you said I couldn't do it. That is childish reasoning. That's how a child thinks. Like, well, technically speaking, I didn't lie. It's like, no, you lied by omission. It's pretty much the same thing. Your intention was to deceive. Their intention was to sidestep a rule. And it sounds trivial, right? It does. But I mean, this would be like somebody going to court or whatever and being like, well, yeah, I know technically it's lying on your taxes and technically it's fraud, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal because it's for the greater good. Yeah, they're not going to buy it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm seeing the bigger picture here. I'm telling you, these people, if this is their attitude, they were already a pain in the ass. And I think what's going on, and again, just armchair observation, I think what's going on here is they were trying to unionize to make sure they couldn't get fired because some of them have been reprimanded already for whatever reason, or they knew they were on limited time. And they're probably a bunch of activists. This is what happened at Teen Vogue too. It's like, we're going to hijack your company. You're going to pay us to say whatever the fuck we want to. And you're not going to be able to do anything about it because we're going to unionize and then we're going to make you look bad. And that's not how it works. Go start your own. And that's what I always tell people that are a pain in the ass. It's like, if you're not happy here, go start your own. And some of them did, and that's fine. You're allowed to, right? Just, go start your own and leave us the fuck alone. We're done here. And I have done that with people. I've actually had to do that on a couple of occasions. And one of those people just doesn't take a hint and doesn't just, leave quietly. But I'm just saying. Anyway. They said, yeah, some members of the Discord who are still in office allegedly shared information or quotes from the emails on the server. Yes, that's you're doing an end run. People make games, claim Rockstar management then became aware of these messages when at least one non-union member of the Discord server reached out to them to express concern. Yes, this is somebody who's, oh my God, they're narking. No, they know that you're waving you're thumbing your nose at the rules, right? I've reached out to Rockstar for comment. Asked about the Discord discussion. Asked about the Discord discussion of the Slack policy changes by People Make Games, Union President Alex Marshall said the following: I think it's absolutely normal for people to be discussing their material conditions, whether that's bonuses, whether that's policies, whether that's anything like that. Yes, but not in the company Slack, not in the Discord, right? If the rule is this, and there are a lot of emails, company emails that will say this, you may not reproduce this content anywhere, this email. You cannot post this email legally for the public to see, because I've got this disclaimer at the bottom and our lawyers will come after you if you do that, because it is company property, right? It's completely normal for staff to be doing, and for an employer to respond in a way that comes down so hard on that shows not only they're governing by this lack of transparency, but they're also trying to govern by fear. Fear of a lot of other people losing their jobs, because if you normalize leaks like this, and this is Grand Theft Auto 6, which is the most anticipated game out there, I think, right now. If you give this a pass, then if somebody just leaks, some of the games or screenshots or whatever, then you got to give that a pass too, right? Now, I do believe Rockstar is pretty heavy-handed, because they sent goons to a guy's house, which I thought was like overkill. But again, I'm trying to look at this from an employer's point of view. And if I have my employees doing an end run around company policy, and then being so flagrant about it, being like, they're just trying to bust the union when they clearly violated company policy, I'd be pissed. I would be. And I think most employers would be pissed. And they were all trying to spit like, well, this is just normal. We're just, water cooler chat, whatever. I'm like, hey, company policy is company policy, right? And usually what happens is you get written up, you get a warning. And if you continue to violate it, you get your ass shown to the door, right? Here's your box, get the fuck out. Yeah, there's a lot more going, and then they're defending it with they're trying to bust up the union. No, I think again, this is just my hunch. I think these employees were already a pain in the ass, and they were looking for a reason to get rid of them. That is my opinion, not knowing the inside details as an employer who's dealt with people that tried to push it. I've dealt with several people that have tried to push it with us. I've had people that thought they were the boss, and usually they get shown the door. It might not be right away, but I look for an opportunity. I'm like, yeah, bye. You're going to be a pain in my ass, and you're going to be anti-help. I talk about help and anti-help. You're going to be anti-help. You're going to make things harder for me. So as long as you do what you're told to do and you're good at what you do, you get to stay. But if you're going to be an asshole about it and try to tell me how to run my company when it's not your company, then yeah, there's a door, man. There's a door. That's just it. They feel completely threatened. This is more of the quote. They feel completely threatened by the idea of workers talking to each other. No, you can talk to each other at the bar. You can talk to each other in private email. You can talk to each other on Facebook. You're allowed to talk to each other. I'm just like, it's company property. You're not allowed to use company property to talk shit about the company or to do an end run around company policy. That's it. That is actually a very reasonable request. So that just shows like how much power these people think they have. Like, I can just use company email and company social media to take on the chuds on Twitter. No, you can't. No, you can't. It's sad that you have to spell that out. Like, basically the company tools only exist to you during work hours. And if you're a 9 to 5-er, 5 o'clock, you're done. If you're salaried, it's a different story. But if you've made it to salary, chances are you play by the rules as an hourly employee or whatever. I'm just like, God, why is this so fucking hard for people to understand? I don't get it. I thought it was gonna be something like, oh my God, guys, it was a very minor infraction. I'm like, no, this is you're violating their rules, bitches. I mean, I would do the same thing. They feel completely threatened by the idea of workers talking to each other. And that's why they've taken this act to try and destroy the union, decimate any form of kind of solidarity being built between workers. If you were fucking serious and you weren't stupid, you'd be doing all this in private. Because your company has access to all this shit, right? Like, if you're using company email and you're using a company Slack, the company has access to everything. Okay. You have access to we've got a couple of different Slacks up for different businesses. I don't use it as much as I used to, but I have access to everybody's DMs too, just so you know. Like if I think somebody's doing something illegal, we have access to it. If I think somebody's doing something illegal with our Gmail, I have access to it. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, like, don't be fucking stupid. If you're gonna talk shit about your employer, do it someplace else, not on the company-owned tools. That's just moronic. So no, I don't believe it's. I mean, is it union busting in the sense that they don't want these guys to unionize because they'll never get rid of them if they do? Yeah, I think it is in that sense. Yeah, but this is. I mean, even a small business owner like myself I'd be like, yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing? No, I don't. I think you guys are motor mouth activists, most likely, and they were looking to get rid of you, and you gave them a reason to get rid of you because clearly you're not the brightest bulb in the box. To talk shit using company tools, yeah. Sorry. I'm going to wrap this up, guys. There you go. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.